Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Life and Literature. My name's Emily and I haven't actually been on any form of YouTube, Instagram, BookTok, everything really. I've just kind of had a bit of a break and a bit of a slump in terms of reading. I think there comes times where sometimes the escapism of reading and books and whole other worlds isn't enough when you've got a lot going on in your brain. So I couldn't really dedicate myself to any stories or books, and it took me a while till I felt in a mental space where I could do so. If you've ever been there, then you fully understand what I mean. If you haven't, then I really hope you don't have to, because having not that outlet of reading, I think also was getting me down a bit. I wanted to jump straight into another series. Maybe a series wasn't the right avenue because it was a lot of information, a lot of characters, a whole new story and plot that maybe I wasn't ready for, but I'm so glad I did. I have now got numerous characters that I love are cemented in my kind of book world, and I couldn't be happier. So without further ado, I'm going to be giving a review of A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This one is the first book of the series, and this will be my spoiler review of A Court of Thorn and Roses. If that is something you would be interested in, then please keep on watching. Feyre is a huntress. The skin of a wolf would bring enough gold to feed her sisters for a month, but the life of a magical creature comes at a steep price, and Feyre has just killed the wrong wolf. Taken prisoner by a high Fey lord, Feyre learns that her masked captor is hiding even more than his piercing gaze suggests. But as Feyre's feelings for Tamlin begin to burn through every warning she's heard about his kind, a shadow is falling across the land, and if Feyre cannot fight it, she will lose everything. So we start the story off with Feyre. She is the main character. She is a human on the human side over the wall from the fairylands. So these are the fairy realms. They're all separated into different kinds of courts. And you have then the mortal lands underneath that, and this was mainly because from what Feyre understands and has learnt, she's heard from ancestors upon ancestors of the wars between them and the Fae kind, and the kind of, let's just say, quite disturbing ways that humans are kind of used. Very much pushed into kind of slavery, and this was because the Fae kind have immortal bodies. Some of them have Fae powers, stronger than others. They are strong, very intellectual and smart, majority of them, very cunning, and overall from what she's heard from people within the town, the area, she has quite a bad dislike for them. Now, it's never really, in my opinion, I never feel like she's pushed to the point of like pure hatred, but she's kind of definitely not impartial. She definitely has these kind of views of what they are, what they have, and the kind of stories that have been told. She definitely is in a more worse predicament because she kind of explains how she is poor. Now, Feyre is from what is described, a tall, slender woman with pale skin, golden brown hair, and slightly up-tilted bluish grey eyes. And because she, I think, is quite poor, they don't eat a lot, she is quite seemingly thin as well. Now, she lives with her father and her two sisters, Elaine and Esther. They come across not the best. You're reading from Feyre's point of view. She has quite a bit of distaste for her father because her father doesn't work due to an incident, and both her sisters have kind of got used to the fact that Feyre goes out and does all the fighting to survive, really. She goes out, she gets the food, She sells some of what she can of the food so that she can make some money to buy an item and things like that. So you kind of really see the kind of animosity that there is in that home, and you're pushed straight into the fact that she's in the wilderness. She's in a rather bad part of the woods because she's trying to fight for survival. She's trying to find the food for dinner and being able to not starve for the next couple of months. That's when she comes across a wolf. Now, in my opinion, I don't feel like Feyre truly probably understood that I think she was hoping it wouldn't be a Fae kind, that she just assumed that it was just going to be a wolf. But the kind of moment they look at each other, that kind of acceptance, she does have a niggle of something, but I think her fight for survival obviously triumphs any kind of feeling or emotion, and she skins the animal to be able to sell it for more money for the family. Again, putting all priorities above all else, providing for her family, keeping them safe, fed and secure. That is her main purpose, and that's all she feels like she is there for, which is really sad. It's really heartfelt, that kind of obligation that she feels she has to extend, and she doesn't actually truly believe in hope and happiness for herself. She kind of just sees it as that one day she'll be content once her sisters are off married and her dad's a bit older, so there's not much more for her to provide. That it's really kind of dark in a way, and I think she's obviously dealt with quite a lot of harsh realities in her life. Her mum passed away and she's never really had that connection with anybody, male or female, friend or partner in any regard. And I think because of her sister's little bit of arrogance to the situation, they aren't really there as her equal, like emotionally at all, and they are quite almost distant. And I didn't really enjoy Elain and Esther's characters at all. I thought they were really rude, condescending, away with the fairies. I think obviously they are there to make you feel more for Feyre's character, which you definitely do, but I feel like there could have been so much more substance to why they have the relationship they do, not just the fact that they just let her go out and fend for herself to hopefully bring some food back for them. So that was quite interesting to read. But then the incident happens where you get introduced to Tamlin. Now, you don't know it's Tamlin at first. You don't know that who he is, because he shows in a kind of animal wolf beast figure, and shows up there to claim Feyre's life, as she had killed one of the Fae kind, and in doing so meant she either needed to die or she needed to accompany him and serve out her life sentence at the Spring Court. She still tries to fight at this point, but goes anyway because she's looking out for her family. Her family look deeply traumatised, and all she keeps thinking about is the fact that they won't be able to last without her, and she's now not going to be able to fulfil her mother's wish of protecting them and looking after them. And it just kind of goes round her head continuously on this journey. And then you finally get taken to the Spring Court, and it just sounds like a haven. It just sounds beautiful compared to what she's used to, and she still doesn't want to be there. She still hates it, and I think you start to see more of her character without the crutch of dependency from her family. She's kind of got more of a personality coming out, because she hasn't just got to kind of live moment by moment and she's exhausted from the day. She's actually starting to kind of have a little bit back and forth with Tamlin and Lucien as she's kind of navigating this new world. She's learning more information about fairies and the Fae people and all the different cults and some backstory, but she's still being very much kept at arm's length. And that was quite annoying, because I feel like as a reader, you know, obviously they are keeping it for suspense, but where you're building this emotional connection to Farah, it was kind of annoying that they were being so elusive with so much information, especially seeing as she was going to be there supposedly for the rest of her life. But at the same time, they're being a bit harsh to her, not including her information or places or anything like that. But at the same time, Tamlin's trying to see her and spend time with her, and she very much doesn't like that. If anything, that just pushes her to want to go with Lucien more, because he's not as pushing with it, with her time. And that kind of made me feel a bit distrustful of Tamlin and his kind of motives, because he was really not very friendly, but at the same time really pushy with trying to be, and it just felt very false and very fake. Now, Tamlin is described as a strikingly handsome and young in appearance, tall, tanned, warrior-built man, fairy, with probably hundreds of years of experience, but supposedly only looking probably in his mid to late 20s. Now, with Tamlin and the Spring Court, they all are wearing these very elaborate masks, these kind of like, sounds like very enchanted kind of glowing masks. Now, he has a golden mask embedded with emerald shaped like whirls of leaves that covered his nose, his cheeks and his brows. He has golden blonde hair and green eyes. So straight away you're kind of showing this very mysterious man, this very mysterious new world, and she's kind of obviously very overwhelmed, but at the same time very intrigued. I mean, who wouldn't be? You've just been captured, kidnapped, taken away from everything you've known, basically been told there's nothing you need to do, food will be provided for you, clothes will be provided for you, you don't actually have a purpose anymore, and just kind of exist. But then you've got all these people around you that evidently have a very huge and ongoing story, as well as these masks that no one will actually address why they are there, and what role she has to play. And this kind of continues as she starts to get to know Tamlin and their relationship starts to blossom. Now, I think everyone, majority in the fandom of ACOTAR, are very much decided that Tamlin doesn't feel like the main character. He doesn't feel like he is the main love interest, because there is just no character development with him. There is very much like, yes, he's this brooding, handsome, mysterious man who's getting to know Farah and kind of encouraging her to have some kind of passions and enjoy, and she's never been allowed to paint because she's never had the money to have the equipment, and then he gifts it to her so that she can actually do something that she's always dreamt wouldn't be a possibility till later in life. And there's certain sweetness to it, there's definitely some steaminess, very hot under the collar moments between them both, but there's still, it feels like something's niggling you the entire time, because his behaviour is still very distant. There's no opening up to his history, his past, his ups, his downs, just anything that could be there to build the relationship of the characters. It's kind of just very almost superficial of romance, unfortunately. But I think that's kind of understanding, because then it is her first real love relationship experience of that, and she is very vulnerable. I think he's kind of pushed her into a position where she feels very alone and scared and worried, and he's kind of being her crutch, her shoulder to lean on, so she's not asking too many questions. But I think definitely how it comes across is definitely something more is going on. I'd like to know from you guys if that's what you felt as you were reading the story, that you were still encouraging of her finding someone, but and having these really happy, lovely moments, but something in me was just niggling of like, there's just more, there's gonna be more to the story, obviously, because it's four whole books of this series, so of course there's gonna be more. But I'd like to see in your comments down below if you had any premonitions of that relationship and how it's going to go in this book. Then we kind of see that the relationship is blossoming to a point where they are both falling in love with each other, and he gets a bit spooked because out comes Rhysand. Now, Rhysand is just the epitome of polar opposite that they could actually find. Like, Sarah J Maas must have literally wrote down one side of a coin and the other. Like, they are just nowhere in betweens. But Feyre is just kind of in awe of his first appearance when they are outside and he comes to somewhat save her from some very corrupt fairies, which God knows where that would have gone. And she's kind of got this little niggle in her head of like, of him being of some importance, and evidently he is, because he spooks her and scares her enough, and Tamlin, that Tamlin puts her in a cart and ships her off back to the wall, over and with her family. Now, he says this for her safety, that she's not safe there, he loves her and he can't jeopardise kind of her vulnerability of being a human. She'd get snapped in an instant. So he sends her back. She can't seem to say that she loves him, and when you go back with her through that journey, obviously you know we're about halfway through the book, more's going to happen. Like, Feyre is not the type of person to have it laying down. Feyre's not the kind to take that laying down, and she's got that fight in her. So as much as she's kind of somewhat in these last chapters become a little bit understanding, a bit submissive, a bit anxious, not wanting to push too much at Tamlin, when she goes back she really feels like it's not right and something else is going on. And when she goes back to her family to see that he has made sure that at all measures her family have been taken care of, he's got them a lovely beautiful house, the dad has managed to get some random person's investment and got all this money, that now they are safe and secure. They have servants and maids and a beautiful garden, and they are just very happy and content. So that was just the last kind of nail in the coffin of Feyre finally admitting that she loved Tamlin, and he had done so much for her and her family beyond measure she even considered, that she jumped straight and went back to that wall. She wanted to go back there to Spring Court and find him and work through it together. She didn't want to have him do this all alone. Now, then we get to the Spring Court and it is a disaster. It's things everywhere and it's just a horrible scene. Now, I knew something was going to happen, obviously. They didn't really suggest any kind of attack or anything like that, but you are kept at the sidelines. You're with Feyre, you don't know what's going on or what's going to happen, so you're meant to be as unexpected as her. And then when she finds out that they've all gone under the mountain by a very, very horrible woman, that is when she gets this fire inside of her that she needs to go there, she needs to save him, and she needs to do everything she possibly can. Now, when she gets to under the mountain, she very quickly gets captured, and I think it just shows her ignorance to the scope of the situation, and again catches you off guard, makes you feel uneasy. You've literally just turned a page and things have just gone a full 180. Now, and this is when you finally meet Amarantha. I think that's how you say her name. A lot of these names I did have to double check, because I think in your head as you're reading quite quickly you can abbreviate, you can get it wrong. But then when I was writing a couple of notes down, I remember being like, I think it's Amarantha, because I think when I was reading quickly, I think I was saying Amaranth or something like that. So it's Amarantha. You meet Amarantha. She is a very, very powerful fae. And she's described as having red gold hair, neatly braided and woven through a golden crown. The deep colour of her white skin is meant to be kind of very contrasting, and she has a set of ruby lips. Now that's Feyre's description of her when she sees her for the first time. But in this whole ordeal, she realises that there is a young woman hanging, very badly kind of disfigured and in quite a bad way and dead. And this is when she realises that this was the name that she had given Rhysand when he'd asked who she was. And she obviously came up with a fake name because she did not trust him. Sadly, in this moment, she is proven right, because there she is, the name of the woman she gave, who was a neighbour of hers in the town. And that's just really dark and really sad, that kind of few scenes when she realises the repercussions of being so fast and quick that she really didn't understand the scope of everything. And then next to Amarantha is Tamlin, both seated in kind of throne looking chairs, and no reaction, no glimmer, nothing in his face, his demeanour. He is just stone rock set in his chair, and you can feel and sense the pain of Feyre not having a response from him. And when Amarantha realises who Feyre is, she kind of very much takes pleasure in the fact that she is going to torture her, manipulate her in any form of way to try and hurt Tamlin, especially because Feyre explains that she's in love with him. And that is just probably the worst thing you could say to someone that wants to purposely hurt you for their own benefit, so it hurts the person that loves you the most. And it's just this whole orchestrate of just, it feels very much like this was very slow paced for so long. Not a lot happened. I understand we were getting a baseline for a lot of the characters, but you really had to stick with it until about halfway through the book, when all of the places and things started clicking into place. And I just feel sometimes, even now after reading all of it, that there was just so much more with them moments, them initial moments with no drama, no concept of what was going to happen, to kind of give more substance to the characters. As I said, Tamlin you don't learn much about of his backstory, what he likes, dislikes. Same with Lucien, you kind of learn a little bit, but he kind of just seems like Tamlin's right hand man. And then I feel like obviously you learn the most about Feyre, how she feels, how she thinks, what she wants to do, but she's still very much submissive and understanding and quiet and just processing everything. So it just feels like it's a very long period until you get to all this drama, and then once you get to this drama, my god, it does not stop. There is so much that happens under that mountain. You have so much trauma to dive into. Poor Feyre, she has so much to get through, and strikes this deal with Amarantha, who is just taking so much pleasure in it. But I think without Lucien and without Rhysand, she would have 100% died under that mountain. And I think she knows that. You sense that she's had this dependency on everybody else to get her out of that situation. And it's really sad and really dark. And even when she feels like she's about to win the situation, is about to get to the next stage, there's just nothing from Tamlin. She feels like she's just kind of been emotionally and physically abandoned. And she's just in such a dark place, and I think Rhysand really took advantage of that and used that to whatever means he felt like to hurt Tamlin. And sadly, I think it did work, but in the process it made poor Feyre so much more closed off, and she's gone past the point of feeling numb. She's just not even a person anymore. She just feels like a shell. You feel like this emptiness inside of her. She knows she's got to keep fighting. She's there for a purpose. But beyond that, she's just got there's just nothing. She's a shell, and it's really dark and not what I was expecting from this book. I think from a few things I saw online, I definitely thought this was a bit on the other side of darkness, not very much what I was expecting, but I wasn't angry about it. I felt like it really helped to understand her character, how she feels and thinks, and what it means to fight for things. It's not easy, it's not simple. I think so many times we get kind of stuck on some of these hero books where within the first book they've gone through this huge journey of self-discovery. They want to be a hero, they fight for something, and they get this huge triumphant feeling, and you think it's going to be followed by a euphoria, but it's not. It's so much darker than that, and especially because she hasn't got anyone around her. She's having to be kept in a cell in a really dark place. She's very claustrophobic, and she's not treated very nice by anybody. I think everyone's terrified of Amarantha, that everyone's just bowing down to her and her wishes, which means Feyre's she's just left to kind of just fend for herself. And you get this really sweet moment where she's definitely at a kind of darkest part of despair, and she's hearing music and she doesn't know where it's coming from, and it's very sweet, and it's this tiny glimmer of light that I feel like she very much needed to hold on to, because she's really losing herself to this whole experience. But she finally gets through all of that in so many trials and tribulations, just to have Amarantha basically trick her into either dying, being killed, or killing Tamlin. And you can just see the anguish and turmoil she is going through. She's just had to kill 2 other fairies, which she takes so deeply because she knows they're innocent people and she knows they have families, but she feels like it's her last thing she can do. She finally gets Tamlin, and I do think it's very smart in learning how his heart was like cemented, how she wouldn't be able to stab him in the heart. That was quite smart with how they couldn't tell her, they were bound not to tell her the full reasons and everything, which is why you understand they had to keep her at arm's length. But they very much made sure that she was overhearing certain situations, and I thought that was really, really clever. I can imagine if it was in a TV show or a film, you would see that hinted throughout, like little pieces, and then right at the end you have that moment, that flashback of you've heard it, you've seen it, that they've referenced his kind of cold, unmoving heart. And I thought that was quite clever, and it's obvious. I think it was obvious that Amarantha was not going to accept her winning that, or when she said the riddle right and gave the answer, that she wasn't going to accept it. She wanted her to die. She wanted to rule. She knew that Feyre wasn't going to be there in the long term, because she wanted Tamlin, and she would never be able to have Tamlin if Feyre was around. So of course she was going to kill her. Like, I think that was evident in the moment she went under that mountain. It was just going to be like how and when. It was quite graphic of the way she died and having people watch her. I did like the fact that you're watching it from Rhysand's point of view. You're not really feeling his emotions or what he's specifically thinking, because you're feeling Feyre through watching it through his eyes. and that was quite, I can't imagine, like, I really think that Sarah J Maas really pulled on the trauma of this character, of how would it honestly feel to watch through someone else's eyes, like you unconscious, like it's unfathomable. So you can completely see how she's in a very dark place, and when she awakes, she has been made into a fae. The High Lords have all granted a small drop of themselves in some form of way. I still don't understand how that would even be possible, but some small drop that she then becomes a fae and she awakes. And it's very sweet. She's reunited with Tamlin. Tamlin has killed Amarantha, and you kind of get this breath of, right, like it's over. It's gone on for chapters and chapters, and she's finally at some kind of steady pace. And I think you really, if you're not emotionally connected to Feyre by this point, then probably you are definitely not going to read the rest of the series. I think you have to love her to want to keep reading from her point of view. And I think I was rooting for her so much, and now that she's fae, there's just so many possibilities of what she's going to do, which is going to be very interesting to read. But I definitely think if you haven't already, A Court of Thorn and Roses is just, it's just everything you could want. It's genuinely, it's got a bit of steaminess, it's got a bit of drama, it's got a bit of banter and comedy, it's got a bit of kind of finding yourself, it's got a bit of just everything. And I really think the way Sarah J Maas introduced all the characters, yes, it may have been a bit slow, the pace was kind of a little bit annoying at times. There were some scenes that I thought were really not relevant to the overall story, but I definitely think it builds a really good foundation for the rest of the series. So if you did like my review, if you did like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.